Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Charlie Pankey with Sierra Now Podcast. Thank you for joining us again today. Wherever you're at, we hope the Sierra is within your view. It's been a great summer. Last weekend we were off. My first week off this year because I was sick. Summer colds are not anything I like to do, and you definitely don't want to hear my voice last week. So I was there, but I'm excited about today's show. We got a backpacking enthusiast and a local author, sorry, in California. Going to be joining us from backpackthesierra.com, Paul Wagner. So we're going to be having him today, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about backpacking, backcountry, Desolation Wilderness, and some of Paul's favorite things. But first, we want to make sure we thank our sponsors for today's show. Visit Carson Valley, our home base for all of our adventures here in the Sierra. Wide open spaces, horses. There's so many things we could do here. But first let me have Carson Valley show you around a little bit. All right, Paul. Hey, great to have you here, Paul. Again, Paul Wagner. He's the author of backpackthesierra.com. Lives in the Napa Valley in California, and he's also a fellow Desolation Wilderness volunteer with me. Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I got to tell you, I'm ready to go to the Carson Valley right now. That was a nice little tip.
Very good. I'm blessed to live here. It's amazing how I live in such a beautiful place, and yet I still go out to the Sierra and come back home. So it's people ask me, well, why didn't you just stay in Yosemite? Well, home's only 2 hours away, and I like sleeping in my own bed sometimes. So nothing wrong with that. Yeah, exactly. Well, Paul, you and I really haven't met much. We've probably been in a volunteer training here and there, but I found your website doing some research online for backpacking as I reached out. So thank you very much for joining us. But I wonder if you could share with our guests and our readers. A lot of our readers are from San Francisco Bay Area or the Bay Area coming this year. Tell them a little bit about you and how you've come about writing Backpack of Sierra.
Yeah, well, I come to the Sierra honestly. My dad was a school teacher in the Central Valley as I was growing up, and every summer for a few years when I was a kid, he worked as a ranger up in the Sierra. So, man, I got to tell you, when I look back on that, it was heaven for us kids. I cannot imagine how my mom felt about raising 4 kids in a tent. One of those little tent cabins for an entire 3-month summer. 4 kids at one point under the age of 10. It must have just been an astonishing amount of work for her. But I grew up that way, loved camping my whole life, took my first backpacking trip when I was 12 with my older sister and a friend of hers in Kings Canyon, and love hiking, love backpacking. And when the kids left, my 2 daughters grew up and left home and went off to live their lives. I said to my wife, let's get back into backpacking. And my younger daughter pulled my wife aside. Apparently, I found out this later, and said, Mom, you got to go backpacking with Dad because otherwise he'll make me go.
Oh, no.
Which is all very comical because my daughter and I just did the Camino Primitivo de Santiago in Spain last summer.
Wow.
And she probably loves hiking and does more hiking than either of us. But in the meantime, my wife and I got back into backpacking, and I thought, people seem to think this is an extreme sport. It's not. It's really very convenient. It's very easy, doesn't cost a lot of money. I think my first backpacking kit that I developed when I was a teenager to go trout fishing in the Sierra, a plastic tube tent, a cheap, if you remember them, Dacron 2 sleeping bag, a backpack that I bought somewhere to use, a used Army surplus store. And that got me up there. I'd go up for a week with that gear. So it doesn't need to be expensive, doesn't need to be hard work. And it gives you not only an interaction with the wilderness that you simply can't get any other way, but I also say, when my wife and I go, it is the best quality time the 2 of us ever have. So
I love
once
that.
I started seeing that, I decided to put together a website that just sort of encourages people to go backpacking.
That's one of the things I love about your website is that, like I have a website and I'm very much more news and I share details and stuff. And your website reads like best friends having coffee together, and you're answering their questions like, yo, I can't believe you do that because of snakes and bears. And I mean, you have a whole little OMG section, which is hilarious, right? So it's like,
Yes, right.
comments people have made, which I absolutely adore. You and I have a lot more in common than I thought. I grew up with a logger dad, so we used to spend the entire summer in the Cascade Mountain Range camping wherever he was logging for 3 months.
Oh yeah.
And my mom, the same thing. It's like, I don't know how she dealt with 3 kids running around the forest, not knowing where we're at. I'd go find eagles or whatever. And, you know, that was just part of how I grew up as well. However, I did not fall in love with it right off the bat. I didn't find backpacking until I was, 10 years ago here in the Sierra before I found backpacking. So this is kind of a newer event for me. So you go with your wife. Now, that's a fascinating story to me. My wife has yet to try backpacking. She's a little bit on the scary side. My son loves it, so we go out quite a bit.
Right.
And my youngest son, his goal for us someday is to do that trip in Spain that you did. He would love to go backpack that. We're just trying to figure out how to do that in life, you know. But so as you backpack from the Napa Valley, what is like the go-to home base for you guys for backpacking? What's your like, if you're going to leave on Friday and you're going up, what wilderness do you pick most?
Well, first of all, Charlie, we have a huge advantage. I'm retired.
Oh, exactly. It is a big advantage.
Forget Friday. We literally try to start every trip on like a Tuesday because, first of all, permits are easier to get, trail quotas are lower, fewer people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a cabin up above Sonora, so on the way to Sonora Pass. So we do a lot of hiking in the Emigrant Wilderness and the Carson-Iceberg, and of course that's only an hour from Yosemite, so we do Yosemite. But I also, over the last few years, have volunteered both at the Desolation Wilderness and McQualamy Wilderness off of Highway 50, and I guess it's 88.
That's where I was at last weekend.
So love those areas and spend a lot of time in those areas as well. And then we're retired, so we sometimes take off 2 weeks in the spring and go out into the desert. And we've backpacked in Death Valley.
Oh wow!
I not recommended in August. Absolutely recommended in March.
Please don't. Yeah, if you're listening now, do not go backpacking right in July and August. Death Valley, not recommended.
Yeah.
Be wise, right? That's fantastic. So, you know, you said your wife took it up with you guys. Did she take it up after you guys both retired and the kids were out of the house, or is this something you did with the kids and like all four or five of you go out together?
Well, we camped with the kids. And initially, we didn't really even camp. Initially, we went to some sort of organized camps in the Sierra because for me, vacation is all about the mountains. And my wife had a rule. She said, we're not camping with the kids until they're old enough to know that it's not okay to eat dirt. So that was the cutoff, right?
I like the rule, yeah.
And then as they got older, you know, they're 3.5 years apart. By the time the younger one was old enough not to eat dirt and everything, we did a whole bunch of car camping. I mean, I think there was one year where every single summer we spent a week up in Lassen.
Car camping in Lassen. Yep.
Yeah.
That is a magical part. When your car camped Lassen, did you guys tend to like go to the north, like was it northeast corner up there by Butte? And how did you car camp in that area?
With kids, the secret is water. Got to have water nearby because water entertains kids. So every place we went camping was always close to a lake. So usually Manzanita Lake, sometimes Summit Lake. But then as they got old enough, as the younger one got old enough to really tackle hikes, the older one pretty much decided, you know, day hiking isn't my favorite thing. Backpacking, absolutely not. So we never did go backpacking with the 4 of us as a family.
Oh, family. Okay, very good.
It was, but there's a nice element to this story because, you know, we took the kids camping every summer, and at one point, my older daughter, as she became a teenager.
Yep.
And no matter what we were doing, she really wanted to be doing what her best friend was doing, which was always something different. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, okay, fine. Never wanted to go camping, always complained about it. And then she came home from her first year at university with a couple of friends and, Dad, can I borrow the car? And I said, sure. And she said, and can I borrow all the camping gear. We want to go up to Lassen and go camping. And that's when I realized she didn't hate camping. She just hated us.
Just didn't want mom and dad's requirements on it.
That's right. And they had a wonderful time camping, and she still loves camping, and she still loves getting out in nature. It just, the timing with teenagers and all the rest can always be a little awkward, but yeah. And so she now, although she's expecting a baby, so she's doing less of this, but she's become quite a fanatic rock climber in the gym.
Very
And
nice.
my older daughter loves to hike everywhere. We just spent a week with her in Yosemite where, thank God, she was in good enough shape that a couple of times she just turned around and said, Mom, give me your pack. And she just took her mother's pack, put it on inside her own pack, and off we went.
Off we went,
And she still was hiking faster than the two of us put together. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson for parents as we go. I have a buddy of mine who hikes with me a lot, and he talks a little bit. He's a little through divorce, and his kids don't live with him. And so he's always stressed about whether the kids will ever, benefit from the things he tried to teach them in the outdoors in the Sierra. And I always try to encourage him, says, listen, I went through a stage. I grew up camping too, went through a stage where I hated it, didn't want anything to do with it because that's what dad wanted to do. And I was, that rebel. And now I can't live without it. It's like my wife says, you need to go to the mountains. You're just driving me crazy. Right.
Yeah.
So I tell him, and like my oldest son last year, I'll never forget this. It was in July last year. He just called me and says, hey, just FYI, I'm going backpacking tonight. I'm going by yourself.
Yep.
And he goes, yeah, I'll be back on Sunday. It's like, I was freaking out. It's like, I've never done that myself. I was going through it. Right. And so you just experience it like, oh, this is his thing now. This isn't even my thing.
Right.
It's like, this is the world I'm going to live in. And so to experience that with your kids is really quite cool. And I'm sure not everybody has that story, but reality is if you introduce kids early on to the love of just being in nature, I do think it calls them eventually back to it. Right. So
I still remember the phone call I got from one of my daughters that she and her friends had gone on some little camping trip to the beach or something. And she called to tell me that, it was her job to light the fire. She said, Dad, only took one match.
Only one match, man. Only one match. Hey, let's switch real quick to Yosemite because you and I have a passion for the same area, Yosemite, quite a bit based on your website. We spent a lot of time in that Tioga Pass region area.
Just there last week.
Yeah, where'd you guys go last week?
So my younger daughter was in town and she wanted to go hiking. So we hiked Pothole Dome and then went over to the Tuolumne River from there as a day hike. And then the next year, I'm always looking for hikes I've never done. And I had never done the Mono Pass Trail that goes up the Dana Fork, right by the ranger station up to Spillway Lake. Spectacular hike. Pretty flat, even though it's at roughly 10,000 feet the whole way. Gorgeous lake at the end of it. So we had a wonderful time there. And then the third day, we climbed Mount Hoffman.
Oh, great. I just did that this summer myself. Yeah.
Brutal climb.
Brutal.
We were there the first day. The first day they opened that trail because it had been a use trail and the park system brought in the volunteers to create a trail. And we got up to the top of that peak and there was a ranger at the top and he says, well, how do you like our new trail? We thought he was kidding.
Right? Because that middle section, I don't know what they call that, a trail. That's just a sand pit. Going up that.
It's just a mess. So we actually thought he was kidding. He said, no, a group of volunteers came out here and we built that trail. We just finished it yesterday. And all I could think was, boy.
The trail on top's nice. That little
more
top
work
section,
needed. Yeah, the top part is nice.
400 yards is
you
nice.
have to clamber up the boulders. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's classic. That Mono Pass trail, I send people on that all the time. One of the things I love doing on that, and I don't know if you've ever experienced, if you go up the right wing to Bloody Canyon to the border there, and then you can cross country actually up to the pass. Shoot, I'm afraid to name it. There's the 12,000 foot pass, right? There's a Parker Pass Lake is right off that trail, and then I go cross country down to Spillway and make the loop. It's a great little lollipop lake, and Parker Pass Lake might be my favorite lake in the Sierra. It's absolutely stunning place. But I love that. I take a lot of people up in the Mono Pass. It's because that easy climb up the Spillway is really pretty. So.
Well, and then we've done it from the other side. We've come up Bloody Canyon, camped at Sardine Lake, and then gone up to Mono Pass and explored the old mines and stuff up there as well. So Oh,
perfect. I've never come up from that side. I've always heard that's a little bit steeper coming up that direction. So
it is. It's the east side. The east side is always steeper.
There's a great story. The author who wrote some books on the pack saddle history of the Sierra, and she
Uh-huh.
tells this great story on Mono Pass of John Muir traveling over with horses and cows and having to hoist his horses over the snowbanks in Bloody Canyon because the walls were so steep. They had to, basically put them on a pulley system and lower the horses down, which I thought was like, these guys did some things in the Sierra that we just we don't even
Yeah.
understand, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's
That's
pretty
right.
pretty crazy
Yeah. Yeah.
in that canyon. So, my favorite place one of the things you went to is Nelson Lake Loop, the
Uh-huh.
off trail.
Yep.
We go Nelson Lake to Mathis Lake around Echo. So we'll do that whole loop. We've done that a couple
Yep.
times, which is
Yep.
very beautiful as well.
Trying
And
to keep that one quiet, Charlie, because the permits for that, the quota is small, but
the quota
usually
is small, which is great.
you can usually get a permit for that one. So yeah,
Yeah,
either that one or Echo Lake. Yeah.
yeah, I understand that one. Usually at Echo, we'll be the only people there, so which is fantastic.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Nelson Lake, there's always a fisherman at Nelson Lake. People's fishing there, having a good
Well,
time.
when we've been at Echo, there have also been climbers who are up climbing Mathis Crest.
I hear them up there, but I never see them. Right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they're up on the slab up there and they're doing that. But
Yeah.
that's very cool. And then my very first backpacking trip ever was Young's Lake. So that was my very first one 7 years ago. We took a bunch of guys to Young's Lakes, and I've
Yep.
been there a couple of times. So
I've actually done that as a camp counselor back in the 70s with a group of about 10 or 12 kids, one of whom got fairly severe altitude sickness.
Yeah, you can get pretty big back there, right? Your head starts
And
spinning. Yeah.
I actually had to hike him back out, just the two
Oh,
of
that's a
us,
bummer.
to get him
We got
down.
back there a few years back with a major fire came through,
Uh-huh.
and we weren't in danger, but the smoke sat in that valley almost scared me out. And luckily I went to bed because it was so late, and I was going, I don't want to walk out in the smoke. And luckily about 2 a.m. the wind came through and cleaned it out for the weekend. But it was like,
Uh,
well, what am I doing back here? This is kind of freaky.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
very cool. How long you been with Desolation Wilderness? If they switch gears on you a little bit.
So I started doing volunteer work in various wildernesses back about 8 years ago.
Okay.
I had posted a trip report on the Backpack the Sierra website about going down Summit City Canyon. And when I posted that, one of the people who reads my blog wrote back and said, there's a ranger up there who's trying to work on those trails. And if you're interested, you should give him a call and help out. And I was just getting ready to retire, and I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. So I signed up for a couple of trips with him. He's become a dear friend. In fact, I was just on the phone with him for half an hour last night.
Cool.
And so he kind of signed me up to volunteer in the Tuolumne Wilderness. And we do trail work a lot of times a whole week at a time. They'll set up a spike camp somewhere in the wilderness, and then we go out and we clear trails in various directions.
I love that.
And then when I fully retired, I started looking for other ways to do this. There's a guy down by Yosemite, Mariposa Trails, Bill King, and he got me involved in doing some trails on the South Fork of the Merced. And then I just wrote a note to Desolation Wilderness and said, hey, do you guys need volunteers? And I think, Desolation they have a lot of volunteers. Most of these other groups, they got 5 people on a crew. Maybe they have a total of 20 people they draw from. But this was a whole different, they have training seminars, and you've got to get certified and all of these sorts of things. And I thought, well, okay. But at the same time, it gives you free personal access to Desolation anytime you want to go in there. Yeah. So I signed up and got trained and joined the crew and went through the mentoring process and all the rest. And that was about 3 or 4 years ago. This year, I think they've asked people to adopt zones of Desolation.
Yep. Yeah.
I was out of the country when they assigned the zones.
Oh, did you? Okay.
So everybody signed up for zones, and I came back. I normally had been working out of Wrights Lake. Twin Lakes, Island Lake, Smith Lake, Maud Lake, all of that stuff. I knew that stuff inside and out. Nice. And I came back, and all of those lakes had 4, 5, 6 people signed up to do them. And I said, well, what area doesn't have any volunteers signed up for it? Yeah. And they said Zone 39.
What zone is 39?
Zone 39. I got no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. It's the outlet stream of Lake Aloha. and it goes down
Okay.
through American Lake and Channel
Yeah.
Lake
And
and
ropey, and
Desolation Lake.
I love that area.
Well, I call them. I said, okay, sign me up. I'll do that. I'm the only guy signed up to do it.
Oh, wow.
And then I hiked up there the first day, and I met a ranger up there at Lake of the Woods. And I said, I'm signed up to do this zone, but I'm not exactly sure how to get there because there are no
Yeah.
trails.
Yep.
And he said, and I met him at Lake of the Woods, and he said, well, you could go around the north end of this lake, but you'd probably be wading in water up to your waist. He says, maybe if you go around the outlet of this lake, you can get up over a ridge, and that'll take
That's the
you
way I
down.
do it.
So I did that the first
Yep.
day. And then the second time I went in, I thought, well, this is crazy. I'm gonna go up the other end. And so I went
Yep.
up to the top, up by Lake Aloha, and got in that way. Found
Yep.
there's actually a
Across the
very
dam.
cool little ramp that takes you straight into Zone 39 without
Yep.
around the peninsula.
Yeah, I usually
Um,
come out that spot. I'll go in over Desolation and come in that way when I do it. And I don't volunteer back there so much, but one of my trips, maybe 7 years ago, I just randomly said, I'm going to go see all the lakes of Pyramid Creek. And so I went from the bottom floor, came all the way up, and then I just followed that creek all the way to Lake Aloha. And I
yeah,
found that area. It's just beautiful
yeah,
up there. So yeah.
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 And then the last time I
Amazing.
went up there, I went over Ralston Peak, which was an absolutely brutal climb. And I was telling my friend about it last night. And he said, yeah, he said, that trail does not meet Forest Service standards. That's way too, that's crazy.
Yeah. Once
So,
you get
yeah,
about 2 miles in, it just gets kind of severe.
yeah. It's more like walking up a bobsled run than it is on a
Yep.
trail.
Very much. Well, I think if you know the camp that's down below that the Russian church owns, I
Yep.
think that's been there for so many years. I think they're the ones that originally built those trails because they have trails on the other side that go up to Cup Lake. They're just kind of the same way. They're just these little straight, I think a dog sled carried supplies up there one time or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very much so. Well, that's very interesting. You've probably done more on the McCullough. I say McCullough wrong, so forgive me on that. But wilderness and then desolation long term, and then you're building
Yeah.
trails. Is building trails kind of a passion of yours, or is that just something you've picked up along the way and you
You
do
know,
occasionally?
I just love being outdoors. I actually find physical exercise beneficial, so I'm happy to do whatever needs to be done. I've done rock work, I've done tree work, I've done
Yeah,
lopping, I've done tread work. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Picking up trash, burying toilet paper, whatever
yep.
needs to be
You do
done up
all
there.
that, right? People always want to know why I'm
Um,
carrying a shovel. It's like, well, because you're
but
dirty out here.
but at the same time, you meet wonderful people. Both the hikers
Yep.
and the people on the trail crews are just great fun.
Yeah.
And it's my wife likes backpacking. She's good for maybe 2 or 3 or 4 trips a year, and usually not more than a day or two out.
Yep.
So these give me a chance to spend a little more time in the mountains than I would if I just limited myself to going with her.
I think
And yeah,
the
yeah,
volunteer work has really enhanced my appreciation of the Sierra.
yeah,
I don't go as desolation as much as I did maybe 5 years ago, because the magazine took off and I travel a little bit more.
right.
But I do love be able to walk in and help people find their way in the wilderness. Do I hate cleaning up after people? Yeah, but do I mind it? No, I'd rather be cleaned up than have it be an eyesore for the next person, right? And most of
Well,
the time, I don't have any really bad attitudes. So.
and every time I've met somebody on the trail and they see the shovel and they ask me what I'm doing and I'm telling them I'm cleaning up, first of all, they thank me.
Yep.
And second of all, they assure me that I will not ever have to clean up after them.
Yeah.
And you know what? If that's what we accomplish up there, that's just great. But then in Yosemite, the last couple of times I worked in there, I was doing meadow restoration.
That's fun.
The
Nice.
first day, basically planting a rice paddy. We were in this soaked, saturated mud, putting
Yep.
new plants down that would grow up and fill in the meadow. And then the
Nice.
last day, we were out collecting seeds from indigenous plants so that when they restored the meadow, they could reseed it with plants that were indigenous to the area. And you're right, you learn all sorts of stuff
That's
when you're
fun.
doing
Yeah,
that.
I've never done it. I did some restoration work in Central Oregon when I was a kid. I worked for a museum there. We got to restore some high
Uh-huh.
desert, which was a lot of fun to transplant natural grasses and
Yeah,
actually I drive by there still today. As I go home, my parents go, "Hey, I did that work right there.
exactly.
I did that 30 years ago, but look what it looks like now. It's like
You
freaking
feel
amazing."
like you own it, right?
Yeah, a little bit
Yeah,
of pride of ownership. It definitely happens.
yeah.
Um, your experiences on the trail and stuff, you've had to have seen some pretty crazy and awesome things in the wilderness. Is there a story you'd like to share of like maybe a favorite day in the wilderness that you've had with your wife that you saw something really cool or experienced something that you maybe didn't expect?
Yeah, we were up a couple of days in Immigrant Wilderness, early season trip, so just
Okay.
besieged by mosquitoes. I mean,
Yep.
literally, you'd come around a corner in the trail and you could hear them.
Yep. The
There were
black
that
ball.
many of them. But we got up to one of the immigrant lakes, so 15, 20 miles from the trailhead, and we just set up camp, and where it kind of things are calming down, and we set up camp up on a ridge above the lake, so you're further away from the mosquitoes. So
Mhm.
something beginners don't know is they always like camping close down to the lake near the water. We like being up on a ridge in the breeze,
Yep.
and away from the bugs. But we sat there, and just as we sat there, a huge bald eagle flew right over us and landed in a tree just the other side of the creek.
Nice.
Um, and it was it's that moment you get when you're when you're backpacking that you
Okay.
never get when you're day hiking. Sun's
Yeah.
going down. The only people there are quiet. They're sitting down. They're getting ready for dinner and all the rest. And it's just a magical time of day. It's the golden hour. The light's turning that wonderful golden orange color.
Yep.
And that bald eagle sailing overhead, that was pretty great.
My youngest son and I, our first trip to Nelson Lake, not to bring Nelson Lake up again, we're sitting on a rock watching a fly fisherman across the lake, fly fish, dusk hour. Bald eagle swoops down, catches a fish right next to him, hops over the shore and eats it in front of us all. And he just looks over and goes, "What do I do?" He goes, "You just sit back and enjoy, man. That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
that's crazy to see that, right?" But
Yep.
my son and I just got back from a one night trip in the McCollum. We went to Kinney Lakes, which is just a short
Yeah,
2 mile hike, right? But we just wanted to get
yeah,
out for an evening, and
yeah,
no moon, and so just pure, beautiful starlit sky.
yeah.
And the sun went down, and there was 5 or 6 other campers up there. It's a pretty popular place, but it was
Right.
completely silent. And we're sitting there until 10:30 at night. We're just talking. We usually go to bed early, but it was so pretty out. But we went to bed, and I remember waking up about 12:30 at night, and it was the quietest I've ever heard the wilderness. There
Yeah,
wasn't a chirp, there wasn't a stick cracking, the wind wasn't blowing. It was just absolute silence. And at first I started to panic a little bit because it wasn't normal. And then
yeah,
just sat back in my hammock and I just listened for probably a good 30 minutes to go, this is so beautiful. I mean, all it
yeah,
was twinkling stars, no
yeah,
noise. It was like it was quite a great experience to have in the
yeah,
wilderness. So
yeah.
those are the things you can't have them until you're there, right? It's like,
That's
oh
right.
wow, that's
That's
pretty
right.
incredible, right? Yeah.
Yep,
So well,
yep.
really great. You wouldn't believe it or not, but we're already coming up on 30 minutes, and I promised I'd be respectful of your time. And I know we could talk about backpacking forever in the Sierra. I have one more question for you. I want to answer real quick, and then we got 3 questions I always ask all my guests.
Okay.
And then maybe someday you and I will do this again. Does that work for you? But
I'd
you
love
have a
to.
series of books that you have written. I saw your website that looks like there's a mystery books. You want to tell the guests about your books and how those came
Yeah, I
about real quick?
started writing these. My younger daughter was living in Argentina, and she sent me a note saying, "Dad, I don't have enough to read in English down here." And I thought, I've been telling this kid stories since before she could walk. So I thought, well, I'll sit down and write her a little story in English. And it turned into a mystery novel set in the Sierra. And I kind of had fun with it, and I sent it to her. And she's now an international attorney, with human rights attorney, so
Okay.
she's a critical audience. And she
Yeah.
said, "Dad, this is really good." So she sent it to her sister, and her sister immediately called me and said, "Dad, this is really good. But where's mine?" So then the next year, I wrote one for her older sister, and now every year I write a murder mystery for my daughters, and they're all set in the Immigrant Wilderness. The hero is a wilderness ranger by the name of Dan Courtwright, named, for those of you who are paying attention,
All right,
after
Lake.
Courtwright Reservoir down
Oh,
in
yeah, yeah.
down in the wilderness. But of course, rangers don't really investigate crimes very much. If there's a serious crime, they turn it over to the local sheriff.
Yeah.
And so his best friend happens to be Cal Healy, one of the local deputy sheriffs. And
Love
the
it.
two of them are just fun people to hang out with. I kind of invented these characters, and you hear authors say this all the time, and you think, oh, what a crock. But literally, when I sit down and write these books, I literally turn on my computer and I start working. And the first words that come into my mind are, I wonder what Dan and Cal are going to get up to today.
Dang, that's fun.
They have great fun with each other. At the same time, they see some pretty interesting and scary stuff from time to time.
That's
But my
great.
wife has
How
a
many
rule.
books? Oh, go on. I'm
Go
sorry, I
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt you. I said, how many
But,
books have you written to today?
so the seventh one just got released in June. That one is called Grave Concerns. And my daughter was out here saying, Dad, how's the next book coming? I said, you'll have it by Christmas. So it's the last one in the series.
Oh, very good. Okay.
I actually started writing it as book number 5, and I got halfway through it, and I thought, this is the last book. But
so you had to go back and fill in some gaps, huh?
I'm not ready to have these guys disappear yet, so I need to go back and write the other books, and then I saved this one, and now I'm finishing it off.
How awesome!
But,
I can't wait.
My wife has a rule on the movies we watch: no blood, no gunfights, no car chases, no explosions. So in general, these books follow that rule. They're exciting at times. And they're murder mysteries that you have to kind of figure out and understand what's going on. But at the same time, they're not blood and gore. And the one thing that I've been delighted about is everyone who's reviewed these books, they not only like them, but they also say, boy, the fact that Paul Wagner really loves the Sierra Nevada comes through in these books. And that's really my inspiration is, you could put a murder mystery anywhere you want. Putting it in the mountains allows me, especially in the wintertime, to get out into the mountains in my mind and have some adventures with my friends Dan and Cal.
Great. Now I saw them linked on your website at backpacksierra.com. Is that the best place to get them, or are they on Amazon? Or
they're on Amazon? Yeah, they're on Amazon. The Forest Service, Stanislaus National Forest carries them. Calaveras Big Trees carries them in their gift shop. So there are some bookstores around in the mountains that carry them as well.
I'm gonna have to take a look at them. That'll be a to-do list for me on that. So
good.
Paul, it is the end of our show. I have 3 questions I ask everybody. So let me get your feedback on this. It's kind of fun for our guest here. So let's first assume your bag is packed and you're going to head out on a backpacking trip. Your choice of your destination that you're going to go to in the Sierra. Where are you going?
Well, if I'm with my wife, I'm going, I always laugh about this question because I can't tell you the number of times somebody has written me and said, Paul, I want to go on my first backpacking trip. I want a beautiful lake. It's got to have great scenery, great fishing, no people, and easy to get to. Right?
Yeah, you're right.
No, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But if I were leaving tomorrow and had any place to pick, I might go up Carson-Iceberg Wilderness, up over the Pacific Crest Trail and down into the East Fork of the Walker River.
Beautiful
Nobody down there.
Beautiful area.
Last time we were there, I think we saw 2 people in 4 days.
Yep.
Magical place.
But magical place. I love it down there too. We take the Highland Trail over there to drop down that little valley. It's a beautiful place back in there. I haven't backpacked in there. I've day hiked the loop, but I do love Carson-Iceberg Wilderness that way. So great. So talking about gear and things that you never leave home without. I'm a map guy, so I always have a paper map with me. But a favorite piece of gear that you never leave home when you're backpacking with.
Well, I've become a huge fan of Henry Shire's tarp tents.
Oh, okay.
We carried a Eureka 3-man tent that's supposed to be a backpacking tent, weighs about 5.5 pounds for years.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I finally decided we need something lighter. I'm getting old. And we got when my wife and I go together, we always take a 3-man tent.
Okay.
It weighs 6 ounces more than the 2-man tent. You get in there and it feels like the Palace Hotel.
That's nice.
Plenty of room.
I'll take a look at those. I haven't looked at those myself. That'll be a gear I have to check out. I'm a hammock camper, so we hammock camp as much as we can. So
and this guy Henry Shires, he's based in I think Nevada City or Grass Valley. I mean, it's pretty. He's up in the Sierra. And recently, because I'm doing so many solo trips with Desolation Wilderness, I bought myself for my birthday a 1-man version of that tent. Comes in at under 2 pounds. Nice. And it's really nicely made.
It's amazing
Yeah.
when you have a place that you can go to bed and you really like it, how much difference that can make in the wilderness too.
Yep.
So, and okay,
Yep.
my final question. I'm a foodie a little bit of a cheeseburger after I'm done with hiking, hunger hike. What is your favorite either on trail food or favorite food after you get back from a big adventure?
Well, on trail food, we always have oatmeal in the morning, oatmeal and hot chocolate.
Good way to do it.
For lunches, we always have crackers, cheese, and salami because they're dry
Okay.
and they don't weigh very much.
Yep.
For dinners, we'll do the usual freeze dried stuff. We have a few that we like, but not. I mean, none of my wife's a professional chef. None of this stuff compares to what we're eating at home.
Oh,
But
good.
I will
Okay.
say, but I will say, every time we come out of the wilderness, the one thing I'm crying for is a fresh green salad.
Oh, really? A salad?
I know a
Okay.
lot of people want big heavy pizza, big heavy, but to
A
me,
big burger for me. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
fresh vegetables is what I dream about at night. Yeah,
Do you
nice
have a favorite
salad.
stop that gives you fresh vegetables on the way out? I mean, is there a coming out of Immigrant? Is there a favorite stop that has a great salad?
No, coming out of Immigrant, we go to our cabin. Well, the market in Twain Harte is a really great grocery store, so we'll
Well,
stop
there
in
you
there and
go.
pick up the fixings and make our own. But yeah,
Go home, go to the cabin. I like it very much.
yeah,
That's great. So, well, Paul, I hope we can maybe connect again sometime. We didn't talk very much about certain lakes and give away too many secrets today, but I really enjoy your website. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I'm going to pick up your books. I think that sounds really fun read,
great.
and I hope our readers will check you out too. There's a ton of great information, like I said, and just some great story. The OMG series he has for bears and snakes and all these different
Yeah,
questions. You guarantee if you've been backpacking long enough, people ask these questions, you'll get it. You definitely get it. And then thank you for being a volunteer in all the different wildernesses. I know I appreciate it. As a volunteer myself, there's so many places I go that I go, I wonder who built this trail and keeps it up so nice. And
exactly.
it's there are people like you out there doing it way more than I do it. So thank you. And I hope your next trip's your best trip in the Sierra, man. It's a
Well, it's a
great,
perfect
wonderful
send
place, right?
off. Thanks,
Yeah,
Charlie.
absolutely.
Hope to see you out on the trail.
That sounds great, Paul. Someday. All right. Have a good day.
Thanks.